It can be a difficult balance, but it is important to understand that we are members of these communities, the communities that we serve, and obviously I've been in this community longer than most.
I think you would be delighted to be here at this celebration, surrounded by people from all three nations represented at the ceremony today.
And have a great, happy Canada Day.
Welcome to This Week Uncut, where we take a look at the week's top stories from CHCO-TV and The Courier. I'm Nathalie Sturgeon.
And I'm Vicki Hogarth.
We begin this week with Canada Day festivities on Water Street.
Oh my goodness, it's always a big event for St. Andrews, but this year actually felt bigger than any year past. I think there were a lot of both Canadians and Americans in town for Canada Day, so it was quite special. I know that this was your first Canada Day with us at CHCO and The Courier, but not your first Canada Day in St. Andrews.
No, I came last year with my roommate and our pets, which is my cat Ollie and her dog Apollo, and we had a fabulous time. We got to experience Canada Day from a tourism perspective, which is a lot of rubbing elbows with other people. It's very busy, and I remember seeing the drone shots that we were able to get from during the parade and kind of after, and the street was full of people. Like, there was not a spot I didn't see ahead.
It's the drone footage really puts it in perspective how many people come to town when you just see this sea of red down Water Street, and it really makes you appreciate how our small town comes together and puts on this huge event that attracts people not just from around New Brunswick, but from across the border, from other provinces. It's really quite special. You were on the ground this year with Lucas and Aiden talking to parade goers. What was the vibe on street level? I know Jonathan and Jay and I were up in the balcony on Windsor House. That's been our perch for the parade for, I can't even tell you how many years now. I look forward to it, but it's neat to be on street level. You get to talk to the people. What were they saying? What was the vibe?
Yeah, so there were people that approached us and asked us what we were doing and who we were, and some of them were Americans who were so happy to kind of be here and participating in Canada Day. It shows that the relationship between Americans, especially folks from Maine, and those who come to St. Andrews on a summer basis are still friends of ours. The vibes were kind of celebratory. I think this was the most important Canada Day that I've been a part of covering because of what's going on with our neighbors. And we did speak to one person who said they had immigrated to Canada. This was their first Canada Day and they were celebrating it in St. Andrews. So it was a unique perspective to see all of these people celebrating Canada on its 158th birthday.
It was neat to know that the Windsor House is the spot we've been covering Canada Day for years now. So it was neat to see. I think we always get an idea in summertime how many people really watch the station. When in the winter, it's just the locals here. We know everyone watches or reads the paper, but it was neat to see how many people were coming from away and were well aware of CHCO and our parade coverage. So it was neat to be stopped by so many people who came by to say hello.
Yeah, and the parade was full of really important moments. It was Kate Akaji's first parade as acting mayor, which was wonderful. I believe she was in a classic Cadillac.
Classic pink Cadillac at that. I know she mentioned it was clashing with her red outfit. I thought she looked pretty great up there, though.
Yeah, she wanted to ride on the fire truck, but the Cadillac was the option she was provided. But it's great to see, her out and about and participating in the community. I was actually able to see her first actual event as acting mayor, which was the cadets' graduation. So that was very nice. It was also Sergeant Scott McKenzie's last Canada Day parade, which was really important for him. He's been in every parade since he got here for 32 years. So this was a special moment for him. And I was watching. I was operating the camera and I was watching, and there was a moment where he got embraced by one of the parade watchers, which was a really strong moment, and it shows you the connection that the police here have with this community.
He did say how he looks forward to this event every year. 32 years in Charlotte County is quite a long time to be a fixture in our community, and on Canada Day he really gets to say hello to everyone who knows him quite well as people that are visiting the community. But there's something about that Mountie uniform when it opens the parade that really does make it feel like Canada. It's really quite special.
That red surge is an iconic Canadian symbol, and that's what they wear in the parade. He joked during his interview with you that that when they first got here, the red surge still fits. So, but it looked pretty good. So I think it still fits now.
I do love a parade too for how much it showcases about the community, the different community groups, businesses that get involved, and it's quite a lengthy parade, about half hour or so. To also opening with the old vintage cars that come down first and sort of clear Water Street of pedestrians, because it's just a pedestrian-only street for most of Canada Day, and get people ready for the parade. We also had a chance to go after the parade up to Kira Amphitheatre, where there was a performance by Olivier Bergeron. Anyone who watches American Idol knows he was a New Brunswicker last season who made the top 20, so quite an accomplishment. Usually finishing at any level top 20 on a show like that opens up a whole bunch of doors for anyone seeking to make a career out of music. So we got the chance to sit down with him, Jonathan Britton and myself, up at Kira Amphitheatre before the show for a segment for an upcoming episode of Good Day from the Bay, just to hear about his journey since. It was really fascinating. I always tune into American Idol. It's my decompression when I get home from a long news day. I like to turn on a fun reality show once in a while. So I was well aware of Olivier before he booked the performance of Canada Day here with the Martin Boys as well. So quite an interesting conversation. And what's also really interesting is when he auditioned for Idol, he didn't even know that he went through because he was still working on his English. So when they offered him the door to Hollywood, he wasn't quite sure what was happening. It was really cute, but it's neat to see that just in a matter of months, he's just perfectly fluent. So
yeah, what a treat to have these so talented people giving music and enjoyment to the folks in St. Andrews. And I saw some video of it, and the whole place was packed. So what a treat.
Yeah, and that was even with, it wasn't the best weather for Canada Day this year. It was quite foggy. It led to the cancellation of fireworks, which will be postponed until New Brunswick Day weekend. So we'll keep you updated on what exact day that will be as New Brunswick Day draws nearer. But I think people had a great time either way. I talked to many restaurant owners who said that they were still busy at night. People stuck around. Some people had made a week out of it, a weekend out of it. So good for business all around, great for community spirit.
Here are some of the interviews from Canada Day.
Honestly, at the beginning, I was like, I can't audition for American Idol, but they found me on TikTok and they just sent me an email and I was like, probably this is a scam. And I didn't respond. And after they followed me on Instagram, I was like, okay, this is real. So I just auditioned like 4 or 5 Zoom on the internet. At the beginning, I didn't speak one word in English. I was like, oh, okay, can you send me the information on Gmail, please? And they're like, yeah. And my girlfriend helped me a lot with this. So yeah, I appreciate this. Before American Idol and Star Academy, because I made a Star Academy in 2022, I think, or 21. And yeah, I was a trucker. I had a lot of job in the wood and stuff like this. I'm not a study guy, so I didn't have the choice to work at the wood and the industry. So it was tough because I know inside of me that I have something special, but it was tough because we are from 2,000 people in my village. So I was like, this is not impossible, but I don't think I have a lot of chance. But after all this time, I made the top 20 on like 1,000, I don't know how many, 124,000, comment on dit ça?
124,000 people.
Yeah, and I was like, okay, so I think I'm singing right now. So I quit my job and I sing right now, but I don't know how many times, but yeah, I tried. You're going to New York for audition. I was like, yeah, thank you. So I prepared myself and in front of Lionel, Carrie and Luke, I think I wait all the day, like 14 hours before to sing. So I was like in the room and I was like, I don't know how is my time, but I'm ready. I was ready to sing, but I was not ready to talk with the judge. For the first time of my life, I rehearsed my song I don't know 1,000 times, but I was like wondering what the judge gonna say. So I was like very nervous. But when they say "Bienvenue at Hollywood," I was like, yeah, oh yeah, thank you, yeah, really. So I was like, yeah, it was a pretty funny TV moment.
I still didn't get on the fire truck, Lucas. They put me in a pink Cadillac and I crashed. And the red fire truck, I'd look pretty good. But anyway, I'm happy, and there's tons of people, which is wonderful for our town. So yeah, I'm very happy. So welcome everybody, and have a great, happy Canada Day.
I'm enjoying it a lot. It's my first time celebrating.
And where are you from? Where are you coming from?
I'm coming from St. John, but I grew up in British Columbia, and my family are immigrants, so we never celebrated before.
Oh, cool. So how are you guys celebrating Canada Day? What are you guys doing?
I'm here with my friend's family. They're from St. Andrews, so they just came and they brought me here. Just make the most of Canada because it's such a beautiful country, and I'm so honored to be here right now in this country.
That was some of the interviews from the Canada Day festivities. Coming up next, we'll take a bigger look at the retirement of RCMP Sergeant Scott McKenzie. We'll be right back with This Week Uncut.
Is to see that rather than just that head and shoulders drive by in the police car and to get them to know us on a personal level, I think is huge.
Welcome back to This Week Uncut. I'm Vicki Hogarth.
And I'm Nathalie Sturgeon.
Sergeant Scott McKenzie will be retiring this fall. It was his last Canada Day representing the RCMP that we just saw, but we had him here in studio not too long ago to talk about his 32-year career right here in Charlotte County.
Yes, I had a good time writing this story for the Courier. It was so interesting to hear him talk about the changes over time to the technology, to the weapons that they use. It was fascinating. He talked about how they started with a different type of gun. Now they use a 9mm, and they have. He was there for the deployment of what people may know as a taser, a conducted energy weapon. It was so fascinating to listen to him talk about the changes, especially the changes to the internet.
I know. It's things like online scams and different issues that they have to deal with now that 30 years ago when he started wouldn't have even been at all top of mind when we were at the advent of the internet. But now it's a different world altogether. But what isn't different is that he's always been so highly involved in the community. And that was really neat to hear. I think at a time when there's a lot of, on a national level, maybe distrust of the RCMP, the work he was doing in the community to be a part of it really made him trusted by the people of Charlotte County.
Well, he said that in his interview. He said when he was posted here, him and his family decided that this was a place they wanted to put their roots down, and he wanted to be known as, Scott the father, Scott the neighbor, Scott the coach, not just Scott McKenzie, the RCMP officer. He also talked about, introducing himself into the high schools, both in St. Stephen and in St. Andrews. And at first, kids were apprehensive. I remember he said they thought someone was going to get arrested. But over time, he wandered the halls and had conversations, and it became a familiarity with Sergeant Scott McKenzie, and he started talking to them about things that he's mutually interested in. Star Wars came up. So it was all of these wonderful things, and he said, and then if there's ever a point in their lives where they have to deal with police in general, or even with him, they know him, they understand him. And so I think he's done a fantastic job of bridging the gap between community and policing and the uniform and outside the uniform.
We are pretty lucky here in Charlotte County that so many of us are on a first name basis with the RCMP here at CHCO and The Courier. They make regular trips to come sit down on the couch to inform us of what issues they're currently dealing with, and it's really quite a wonderful relationship, whether it is Sergeant Scott McKenzie or Staff Sergeant Jeffrey Peters or Chris Henderson, all these faces that we know. But Scott McKenzie definitely, when he came in to sit for a long format interview, really did show us why he was such a fixture in Charlotte County, from his work in high schools as a coach and his time on Charlotte County Search and Rescue, which he said even in retirement he's going to keep doing that. He'll still be highly involved in the community.
Well, it's funny too, because one of the things that he mentioned was the bag phone, and it struck me as a memory that I actually have, as my father works in the woods, and at one point in time a bag phone was the most reliable thing you could take with you into an area where there wasn't a lot of service. So I remember the bag phone. I'm pretty sure it's still in my basement somewhere, my dad's basement somewhere. But these are all the things that connect you to individuals and to community. And again, we talked about that embrace that he had during the Canada Day Parade. It speaks to what these people mean to their community.
And people should go on our website, CHCO.TV, that also houses all our articles from the Courier. He wrote a really wonderful piece on Scott McKenzie's appearance in the Canada Day Parade, what it means to him, what it means to the community. The good news is, for people learning about his retirement at home, it's not till this fall. So if you get a chance to see Sergeant McKenzie out and about in the community, be sure to thank him for his service, catch up, but he'll still be around. He said he's not leaving Charlotte County.
Well, and he did say he would join the reserve unit potentially to fill in as necessary and keep that connection with the detachments and his fellow RCMP officers who he's built connections and relationships with. But I think his main focus, as he mentioned, as you'll hear in the interview, is that he'll go to Charlotte County Ground Search and Rescue and help them very extensively. He thinks his coaching days are over, but he'll be able to help the community in other ways and continue to live here and support the community.
I love that about retirement in Charlotte County. It often means you just have more time to get involved with more things. It's a tight-knit community, and we all step up to the plate where we can. So I'll actually be curious to follow his retirement career, because that should be interesting as well.
Do you ever really retire?
In Charlotte County, no. Here's a look at our interview with Sergeant Scott McKenzie on his time in Charlotte County as well as his retirement.
It was always something that I had been drawn to as a kid. It kind of started, I think, in junior high, that I had an interest in joining the RCMP. And then in high school, we had a family friend that was a RCMP officer in Bible Hill, Nova Scotia. And just my connection with Guy and getting to meet him and know him just increased my desire to be an RCMP officer.
How did you end up right here in Southwest New Brunswick? You're from Truro.
Yep, born and raised in Truro, Nova Scotia. Kind of a long route. After high school, went to St. Evex University, obtained a Bachelor of Arts in History and Political Science. From there, my then girlfriend at the time, current wife, we moved out to Regina, where she was continuing her education. And we were living in Saskatchewan when I was actually hired by the RCMP. Initially, for the first almost 7 months, I was sent on language training in Montreal to learn French at the Public Service French School in downtown Montreal. Following that, we were shipped out to Regina for our 6-month basic RCMP training, and then posted to St. Andrews coming out of depot.
And you've been here for how many years now? It's over 3 decades.
It was 30 years in January that I arrived in St. Andrews as a member of the St. Andrews Detachment.
Wow. So when you look back at over 30 years in the RCMP, what have been some of the changes you noticed with time? I know now we have things like body cameras, but how has the role itself changed and adapted over the years?
There's been a lot of changes that especially the timeline that I've been in the RCMP from 1993 to the present day. For example, I started with a .38 revolver. Within a year of being out in the field, we then transitioned to the 9mm pistol. Over my career, I've seen the introduction of the conductive energy weapons, the CEWs, tasers, for lack of a better term. I've seen the introduction of the patrol carbine rifles that are now equipped in our cars, the body-worn cameras, the 40mm less lethal guns that we have. So there's been a huge change in introduction, hard body armor. There's been a lot of changes to not only the gear that we wear and carry, but the police cars and computers in the cars that have GPS. All our calls are dispatched directly to the computers in the cars, like you would see on TV, that sort of stuff. We can run, driver's license and check individuals via the computers in the cars. All the traffic tickets are all e-ticketing. It's printed right in the car on thermal paper, a little printer in the car, mounted in the car. So there's been a lot of changes that I've seen in the 30 plus years of my career.
And it's neat to have you to speak with someone who's been, stationed right here too for over 30 years. So have you also noticed issues take shape or change over those 3 decades as well? Have there been things that maybe are more important to look at now that weren't so much so maybe 10 years ago?
Not a lot of changes. Like there's always change with society and with in 30 years there's been lots of changes to Southwest New Brunswick. But for the most part, it's pretty well the same. We have the same issues and the same things that we deal with day to day, and a few different drugs have added a different dynamic to policing and to our society and to our region as a whole.
And I suppose too, you would have also faced the introduction of the internet. So you have things like online scams as well, and things that maybe when you started your career never would have been a reality.
Yeah, exactly. Like for example, when I started, we had paper files. So all of our files were handwritten and just stacks of paper. As we added more reports, they were added. And then within about a year of me being in St. Andrews, the introduction of electronic filing systems. When I first started, we didn't even have email at the detachment. So within about a year and a half of me starting, we had the introduction of the electronic files. We were then on email. There was no internet at the office. There was, I remember getting my first, computer that had internet access, but we had none of that at the office. So yeah, there's been a lot of changes from that side of it.
It is a weird thing even for me to say to the younger people here. I remember getting my first email address in, I think, university.
Yeah, we didn't even have telephones in the cars. Like I remember obtaining the first bag cell phones for the 2 patrol cars that were assigned to St. Andrews. And they were the old Motorola bag phones that you plugged into the cigarette lighter. And so we've transitioned from that into the little flip phones, and now RCMP issued smartphones and et cetera.
What's it like, though, to be this familiar face? We all know you, not just as Sergeant McKenzie. I almost said Scott when we started because
that's
you
fine.
are.
Scott is my name. Scott is my name. Sergeant is my rank. So that's
in my professional setting, I'm saying Sergeant McKenzie, but
Scott
we do know you as Scott. You are such a familiar face. I can recognize you in your streetwear and say hello. What is it like to be that person of authority in this community, but also a neighbor to so many as well?
It is important, because we recognized we wanted to stay in this area. And it was very important for me to be connected to the community, to not only be Scott the Mountie, but Scott the neighbor, Scott the coach, Scott the friend. So it can be a difficult balance, but it is important to understand that we are members of these communities, the communities that we serve, and obviously I've been in this community longer than most, and that most members stay in communities. So it was important to, be part of the community and for people to see me outside of wearing the uniform, on a day-to-day basis. And
what are the challenges when you are covering a rural area like this one? I know we are complicated also by having the ocean right at our doorstep with islands and whatnot, but what is it like being an RCMP in a community that is so rural and in some cases so spread out for your coverage?
Yeah, the issue for rural policing is just distance. We are obviously, we have urban areas, St. Andrews, St. Stephen, St. George, Macadam, and such. But for the most part, we are a rural area. We're not a large rural area. If you look at other parts of Canada, like the prairie provinces, their detachment areas are much larger. But even our small corner of the world and of New Brunswick, distance is our struggle. Just because of we can't be everywhere at once, and it just creates the time of getting to a call, getting to a certain area, because just the drive time, and it's not like municipal forces who have a very small area, and if you put X amount of police officers in that small area, it doesn't take them very long to get to those calls. But if you take those same amount of officers and then you expand the area they cover tenfold, then it just naturally takes longer, depending on where we have to go to and what we have to do.
I'm sure it's almost 32 years under your belt. You've seen many things. I know that I have so much respect for things you probably had to witness that some of us can only ever imagine, but you've probably seen some pretty powerful things about small communities as well. Does that stick out to you when you look back on your time here? About, obviously there's been hard topics, hard issues to cover, but it's also a pretty resilient and special part of the world too. It is.
And what jumps out for me, I guess, if you were to say like one thing that over my career and that I've taken a lot of pride in and enjoyed tremendously, and I'll be frank, is July 1st. July 1st in St. Andrews. I've marched in majority, if not all, of the, this will be my last one this coming July, in a couple weeks. That is been a true honor. To represent the RCMP and represent Canada at the huge event that it is. I remember my very first year, and you're the young guy fresh out of depot, and you still know how to march, and your surge still fits and all that stuff, and you're marching. And it just, the pride in the organization, the pride in the uniform, the pride in what we do, that's what it just shows you how people appreciate what we do. We're not perfect. Police officers are human. We don't get it right all the time, but we strive to get it right. And it is very proud, and it is a very strong feeling of pride when you walk down Water Street and there are, thousands of people clapping for you and the veterans and the cadets and et cetera, as you walk down there. And that's I would say that, along with my work with the youth, the coaching that I did over the years, whether, for the most part was hockey, a little bit of soccer off and on, but hockey was my big thing. Both my boys played hockey, and on top of, July 1st would be my interaction with the involvement with the youth, whether coaching or just being involved in the schools. When I worked in St. Andrews in the early 2000s, I came back after spending 6 years in St. Stephen and then a couple of years in St. George, and came back to St. Andrews in around 2003. And I was heavily involved with the elementary school and with the high school. I'd stop into the high school at lunch hour and stuff like that, and then teaching classes and just interacting with the youth, just getting to know the youth, which is very important for community policing, but especially that relationship between the youth and police. I remember the first few times I walked into the high school at lunchtime, the looks on the faces from the kids, and you could almost hear the wheels turning in their heads, like, okay, who's getting arrested? And my wife and I are good friends with Dave and Leslie O'Leary, the principals, and I would come in and talk to Dave, and then I would just kind of wander the hallways. And then after about a few days or a week or two, and I was just a routine. They didn't even look twice as I would, walk through the halls, stop in the classrooms where they were kind of congregating on their lunch hours, or go down to the cafeteria and just sit and chat. And a lot of the kids were kids that I knew through their families or other stuff. But for them, and then talking to them at the youth center, I would stop in there on shift, and having the opportunity for them to meet a police officer, know a police officer on a personal level, to realize that we're humans too. We have interests. We have, whether it's music, or I'm a kind of a sci-fi nerd, and to sit and chat with kids about the latest Star Wars movie or whatever the case may be. So they see that it's like, wait a minute, I like this, and this person and this police officer likes this as well. Is to see that rather than just that head and shoulders drive by in the police car, and to get them to know us on a personal level, I think is huge. That if you ever do have to deal with those youth, the youth, or an adult for that matter, if they know you as a person, it makes it easier if you have to deal with them professionally, and that you have that mutual respect.
I do feel that way about all the RCMP officers I know. I think I know everyone on a first name basis, and not just through work. It really is from community. Having been able to see that through your coaching and your work as an RCMP officer, that influence and that impact that you can make on the youth, you must have seen it go through the years as you watch these kids grow up too. And what kind of impact did you see it having in terms of their understanding of what your role is, and their ability to not maybe see it as someone they should fear?
Yeah, and that was very important. I would see it as the years went on, and especially with my last stint coaching was with the high school team here at Sir James Dunn, and that's I think the last year I coached there was when my youngest was in grade 12. So it had been a few years, after that a few years, but then my players would come back to town or would be around them, whether they went off to university or some joined the military or whatever. And then having that opportunity to sit and talk with them, maybe, I've gone into a local restaurant at times, and some of my former players were there. They're now legal drinking age, and they're at the bar, and we'd sit down and, let's have a chat. So it's stuff like that really, because it's those lifelong relationships that you create. And for them to say, okay, that it's Scott. RCMP is secondary. That I know him as Scott. I know him as my coach or friend or whatever the case may be, but RCMP is secondary. And and there have been times when when I've had to, help or deal with somebody on a professional level, and that having that bond allows us to have that, to kind of take the edge off sometimes. It's like, they know who they're talking to. We have that respect, and we'll work this out.
Now, I know you are staying in Charlotte County.
We are.
Can we expect to see more coaching? What will you be doing in your retirement?
I think my coaching days are done. As much as I thoroughly enjoyed it, it was a large time commitment, as you can expect. I'm very involved with Ground Search and Rescue. I'm a member of the Charlotte County Ground Search and Rescue, involved in their training committee as such, and I'll be continuing as a member of the team as a volunteer. So I'll be doing that. That'll take up a lot of my time, as well as I've got some other stuff that I'm looking at, whether it's volunteering with it's Nature Conservancy, doing some trail maintenance and just helping out, that sort of thing. But I've got a few ideas of different things, and I've also possibly looking at the reserve program with the RCMP, just to work casually, just to fill in shifts and maintain that connection with the local detachments. And if they have a shift that's open, they need overtime, then I'm available and stuff like that. So I'm looking at stuff like that.
That was Sergeant Scott McKenzie. We will be right back with more of This Week Uncut after this, looking at the Friendship Trail opening on Campobello Island.
They represent the trees of each nation, the maple for Canada, the oak for America, and the elderberry was chosen by the Passamaquoddy people.
Welcome back to This Week Uncut. I'm Nathalie Sturgeon.
And I'm Vicki Hogarth. We're heading over to Campobello Island now, where I was last weekend for the opening of the Friendship Trail at the Roosevelt Campobello International Park. It was a really beautiful ceremony, and I was pleased to head to the island to take part in it. It was Louise Imbeau, the Lieutenant Governor of New Brunswick, Chief Hugh Akagi of the Pescatawamagadi Nation, and Anne Roosevelt, who is the granddaughter of Franklin D. Roosevelt and also chair of the commission of the park. They tied, instead of cutting a ribbon for the trail, this happened at Adams Lodge, which is a beautiful location on the island, and instead of cutting a ribbon for the trail, they tied a ribbon, and it was really supposed to be symbolic about the three nations coming together to make this trail a reality. So it was definitely a special event. I was really excited to be there. We actually drove through the U.S. I wanted to see how it was going to Maine. Instead of taking the ferry, we also brought Maud, our dog, with us just to see. I filled out a form through the CDC that you now need to fill out when you bring your dog across the border, but it was really hassle-free, and we made it over for a full weekend on the island.
Yeah, what a great example of collaboration between not only Americans and Canadians, as we have been talking about for months now, but also Indigenous communities that are the stewards of this land, right?
Mm-hmm. And this trail is really special. It goes through wetlands and bogs on the island, parts of the island that weren't accessible before, and it was done in a very environmentally friendly way, but allows people to see different parts of Campobello that prior to this trail opening and this ambitious project weren't really that accessible. You could see them from maybe a drone, but this way you're able to explore them on the ground level.
Well, I saw the video of the drone kind of following the trail, and it is very clear that you probably wouldn't be able to get to those areas without that. So what a fabulous construction of a project that bridges not only land but communities as well.
What was interesting too about heading over to the island is that we know that Campobello, usually it's around 85% of tourism in the summer months comes from the United States. So there was this worry prior to summer kicking off that maybe those numbers would be down this year, given the trade war that we're still in the midst of, and maybe that would have an effect on tourism. But it really didn't seem that way when we were over there. There's so many American license plates, and it was really just special when you are so used to seeing some big national headlines, international headlines about what's going on in the world, to realize that in our corner we are still tightly woven together and very much one community despite a border running through everything.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that this is about the American people. I think it's about the Trump administration, and I think Canadians can separate the two. I think the difference for us is that it is a bit more of a question of getting across the border as opposed to visiting America. It's not that we don't want to visit you or that we don't want to participate. It's the question of getting across the border that really is at the top of mind for Canadians, and the vast majority of people are going to get across without issue, but it's for that small percentage that it's not worth the risk at this moment. But we spoke to many Canadians and Americans on Canada Day, and they shared that they love this place. They love to come here. They love to visit, and we welcome them. We want them to come. It's a very important time to continue that special relationship.
And I should say on that note, we will look at the interviews with Anne Roosevelt and John Southern, who's the executive director of the park, very shortly. But I really did want to stress there's another way too. If you don't have a passport or if you don't want to travel through the United States to get to Campobello, it's so worth a visit. This time of year especially. There is the seasonal ferry running now,
yes.
and it goes to Deer Island, and you take the Deer Island ferry to the mainland. But I had it as a backup plan. I thought, well, we'll see how this goes. I've never brought my dog through the U.S. before, so that was Maud's first international adventure. But it was easy, but I always had the ferry as a backup plan. It's just we had to leave late Friday past the last ferry. So I said, well, either we leave early Saturday morning or try this now, and it was fine.
And if this scaredy cat can do both ferries to Deer Island and then Campobello, you can do it too. So get on that boat and go visit. It's important to them. And we want people to visit Campobello Island. We want people to visit all parts of Charlotte County, so get out and visit.
And now you have even more reason to with the opening of this trail. The park itself is very special. I love going, and it was really special as well to talk with Anne Roosevelt about how her grandfather, FDR, such an iconic wartime president, so beloved internationally. I was just in Paris. There's a metro stop. The FDR metro stop is a huge metro stop in Paris, just as tribute to everything in World War II that he represented on the world stage. So definitely it was fun to talk to Anne about how she thinks her grandfather would look at the world right now, and also look at what's happening in our corner of the world, where these friendships are standing this current test that we're all in, and Maine and New Brunswickers are staying united on so many levels. So it's quite beautiful. Here is our interview with John Southern, Executive Director of the Roosevelt Campobello International Park, as well as Anne Roosevelt, who is the granddaughter of FDR and the chair of the Parks Commission.
It's primarily about the opening of a new trail that's like nothing else and that we know of in North America. It provides access to an additional 1,000 acres of the park's beautiful unspoiled habitat. It's an ambitious project that has been underway for at least 7 years that I know of. I think it was conceived about 10 years ago, but we've gone through an extensive permitting process to ensure that the most stringent environmental standards were adhered to, and that we've approached this with ultimate responsibility towards the ecology of a very sensitive domed coastal bog area of the park. So it opens up not only just a unique area of the park, but a great educational opportunity, great opportunities for cycling, hiking, bird watching, and a variety of different educational activities in an area that otherwise you couldn't access easily. But ultimately today is not just about the opening of a trail. It's a very special day in that we recognize through the naming of the trail the friendship, unity, and mutual respect between the nations of Canada and the United States and the Passamaquoddy people. And it's particularly important that we recognize in these troubled times that we are all friends. We don't have to let politics divide us. And our mission here at the park has always been one of friendship, unity, and mutual respect, regardless of backgrounds, national origin, beliefs, etc. So the trail really symbolizes that unity that this park so much represents and has represented in its 60-year history.
And your grandfather may have been an American president, but he means a lot to Canadians too. You talked about him in your speech. What do you think he would think about this moment today and really what's happening here at this park amidst what's going on in the world?
I think he would be delighted to be here at this celebration, surrounded by people from all three nations represented at the ceremony today, and just happy to be together and feeling that this is what he worked for all his life. It was this kind of collaboration to do the right thing, to respect humanity, to respect the planet, to lead us in peace. I think he'd be completely thrilled.
There was not a traditional ribbon cutting today. It was a ribbon tying event. Why was that so symbolic?
We felt that it was symbolic because the three trees, they represent the trees of each nation. The maple for Canada, the oak for America, and the elderberry was chosen by the Passamaquoddy people. And so tying the three trees together was a symbol of that unity that the park represents and that mutual respect for one another.
Can you tell us a little bit about what you think the rest of the world can learn from looking at not just the international park, but this island and what's able to be accomplished here despite everything that we might read in news headlines?
Well, I think if anybody comes to Campobello, they're overwhelmed by the natural beauty, and you begin to realize how we are, and the Passamaquoddy teaches us that we are guests in this environment. And it puts everything in perspective. And it helps you to understand, well, if the planet can be this gracious to us, we can be this gracious to each other. So I think that's what they would come away with.
Yep, and certainly if we look back to who we honor here, which is Franklin Roosevelt, Franklin united the world at times of great challenge, the Great Depression and then World War II. And it's our duty to honor that legacy by further bringing people together here, regardless again of backgrounds, political divide, borders, etc. And here at the park, hopefully our visitors leave understanding that we all do have a lot in common. We do share a lot of the same problems, issues, the same passion and love for the wilderness environment here, the same passion for history and culture. And we're more alike than unlike. We are very similar.
I think of Eleanor Roosevelt a lot and brighten the corner where you are. That's how we go about what we do when we do local news. What do you think people today should be taking from FDR, from Eleanor? What should they remember when we try to light a way forward?
Well, both of their lives, I mean, they were different personalities in a way, but both of their lives were focused on what can I do for the other person, for other people. What can I do to make this world a better place? I think that's what we should take away from their example, is not the specific actions necessarily, but this undergirding purpose of serving others, bringing peace, getting along, being fair, being just. I think those are the lessons that they leave with us. And their joy in this beautiful wilderness.
John, coming to the island, I came through Maine, brought my dog. It was easy. Also beautiful to see so many American license plates here still. Are you surprised or not surprised by the international travelers that are still coming to the island at this time?
I'm not necessarily surprised because the mission that we represent here is something that the typical visitor here would seek out regardless of the challenges of getting here and the differences between, like I said, the political scene right now. So I think we're surprised that it's at the same level as last year, because last year was obviously a very, very summery season with very little rain. And of course, this is now our 16th consecutive rainy weekend, but it hasn't deterred our visitors, which shows the resilience of the people that appreciate this kind of environment, that appreciate our mission. And the visitors, they know that they have a lot more in common with each other than what they don't have in common.
The wonderful thing in talking with our guests today at this celebration, both Canadian and U.S. visitors have talked about their trips to each other's countries. So we hear a lot of talk about distress, but underneath it, people are people, and we still feel that we are neighbors and friends.
We Canadians think of the Roosevelts as our people. I can't believe I just refer to you as Anne. What does it mean to you to keep Campobello still as such a special place in your family's heart?
Well, because they appreciated the ability to be here. They were very grateful for the welcome that they received when they came to Campobello. It's our responsibility to keep it an open and welcoming place.
That was Roosevelt Campobello International Park Executive Director John Southern and Anne Roosevelt, granddaughter of FDR and chair of the Parks Commission. We will be right back with what's coming up next week on more of This Week Uncut. Welcome back to This Week Uncut. I'm Vicki Hogarth.
And I'm Nathalie Sturgeon.
Well, we had a beautiful week this week celebrating Canada Day, getting out in the streets, talking to people, but we have a busy next week as well. What's on schedule for you?
Our news team is working on a lot of stuff. We were a bit distracted this week with Canada Day, so we're getting back on track. We have some stories that Lucas is working on for Minister's Island about its funding model, where he's also working on a story with the Nature Conservancy on Navy Island. He's also working on another story that we're not going to give away too much, but it's an innovation from someone in Charlotte County related to aquaculture. So he's working on those stories, and we'll hopefully have some of those next week. He's also working on European trade barriers and things like that. I'll be working on some stuff from St. Stephen, the facade program, the community safety survey, as well as some news stories on wildfire resiliency plans.
Busy week. I am actually I think Lucas will be also heading to the Hollows Golf Course. Lucas, you have a busy week if you're watching. The Hollows Golf Course is having the grand opening. Now, this is in Utopia, Eastern Charlotte. Officially opening the 18-hole course. It was a 9-hole course before. I think a lot of people this winter got very familiar with the Rhubarb restaurant, which is at the course with Chef Kyle Stewart's really, really fabulous restaurant. But we're also excited for this golf course grand opening. It definitely gives people another reason to either explore Charlotte County or just appreciate what we have in our own backyard.
My boyfriend Liam is an avid golfer and loves golfing, and he's very excited about the expansion at the Hollows. So I'm sure I'll be spending some money at the Rhubarb soon.
And we're coupling summer sports with winter sports because I will be going to the Garceland on Monday to sit down with Mayor Alan McEachran of the Municipal District of St. Stephen and Ted Colley, who is bringing the NCDC hockey teams to both Eastern Charlotte. So we've got the Kingfishers in Eastern Charlotte. In St. Stephen, we have the Seawolves.
Yes.
So it's going to be a really, really fun winter, I think, in Charlotte County as we see this this very friendly rivalry take off, and we really invest more in hockey in the community. And I'm excited to check out those games.
I think this is a fantastic economic opportunity for this region. The Garceland is a state-of-the-art facility that's been built. Eastern Charlotte also has a lot to offer, so I'm excited to see what this means for them. Sports tourism is a big opportunity for Charlotte County, so I'm very excited to see what happens. I already think that we'll be buying season tickets to one of those teams. I'm not going to say right now, but there's already been a request for season tickets. So
I feel like we have to split up our team and half root for Eastern Charlotte, half root for St. Stephen. I don't know how we're going to do this. I'm going to decide based on the outfits. Is that terrible? Whatever I like better.
The Kingfishers have a wonderful uniform, so.
The fact that I called it outfits shows you how involved I am in hockey. They're outfits.
They're jerseys, yeah, there you go.
But definitely exciting times ahead. So, and I'm sure that there'll be a number of events that keep us busy as well. That is the nature of summer in Charlotte County. There's pretty much something happening every day, but it definitely keeps us busy. It keeps us excited and engaged with the community, but I'm very much looking forward to it.
Thanks for watching This Week Uncut. We'll see you next week. I'm Nathalie Sturgeon.
And I'm Vicki Hogarth.